right, again, if you have questions, type them in the question box throughout the webinar, and I'll be sure to get Dana's attention to get those answered. Certificates will be mailed out to attendees after, and please complete the survey for us. All the documents from today and the resources will be posted on the help desk if you want to go back and look at those. Dana, are ready whenever you are.
Okay, hello out there to all our friends there in North Carolina. My name is Dana Mitchell. I'm the coordinator of Dover Youth to Youth, and I am handling the technology end of things here and getting things set up for our presenters, for students from Dover Youth to Youth that have a lot of experience doing campaigns and the various activities that we do. And we have a great presentation planned for you. My information's up on the screen, and I'll show it again at the end. I'm the contact person for any follow-up information you want or follow-up questions you had. I'm the one to reach out to because the students will be where they're supposed to be in school probably. And I'd be glad to help you out for anything, copies of things. We put a lot of information into the handout that was passed out, sent out to you. For today, a lot of you are toolkit owners, the resource toolkit that we produce, but you don't have to have it with you, nor do you need to be a toolkit owner to get the full value out of today's presentation. And regardless whether you're a toolkit owner or not, we're glad to help you out. If I can email you an example of something or an MP3 or something that you've seen, I'm glad to do it. Today what we want to do is help you think about developing your message for a campaign and outline the main core elements of a typical campaign. We're going to give you some examples of how youth can play a role in your coalition or your community's campaign on some issue, and give you some ideas and resources that you could use in developing that. And lastly, we're going to show you some examples of campaigns where youth have played a key role. So the overriding focus here is not just in planning a campaign, but planning a campaign where the youth advocates in your community are able to play a significant role in doing that. So with that said, I'm going to turn it over to my four students here from Dover Youth to Youth, and I'll let them take over from here.
Hello everyone, my name is Grace and I am part of Dover Youth to Youth. So Dover Youth to Youth is an after-school youth empowerment program where students work together to tackle many problems that are related to substance misuse. So we have over 70 students and they all meet on 4 different teams, and each team meets once a week for 2 hours. And when we do our projects, we like to focus on 4 main areas. They are education, community awareness, policy change, and media.
So when it comes to education, we do a variety of different presentations. This includes classroom presentations, larger assemblies, as well as advocacy training.
We also do a large variety of community awareness action projects, such as sticker shock right here.
And we are very active in policy change. To date, we have passed 8 town ordinances and 3 state laws.
We also create and produce a lot of our own media, including over 200 radio and video PSAs. So Dover Youth to Youth is a youth empowerment group, and we have a very certain youth empowerment model that we use. This model is knowledge, skills, and action. The entire concept of this is that all of our students get the knowledge and skills that they need to be able to move forward and take action.
And a lot of what we're going to show you today is the kind of knowledge and skills the students would need to be engaged and participate meaningfully in a prevention campaign. And that's where we're going to go from here, planning a campaign.
So like we just said, our main point today is to talk about what a campaign is. So a campaign is multiple projects that are dedicated to promoting a single message or multiple messages, and they are normally conducted for a year or maybe more.
An example of a campaign that we've done in the past is our fridge campaign. So this campaign was used to make so parents were aware that they needed to control the alcohols in their home in order to keep their kids from drinking it. So in order to start this campaign, we first had to do some research. So we asked 1,600 high school students in Dover, New Hampshire, if they've ever had alcohol, what was the source of the first time or the first few times that they drank? And the number one answer was from their home or the home of a friend's.
So our goal when we did the Fridge campaign was to reduce underage drinking. And our thought was that if we could get parents to control the alcohol in their homes, then it would reduce the access to young kids who have fewer sources, since they probably aren't going to college parties.
The theory of change for this campaign was that if we reduce the amount of alcohol kids have access to, there will be less early drinkers.
The target audience for the Fridge campaign were the parents. We hope to change the behavior of the parents so they could keep their alcohol safe, so in turn their kids won't have access to it.
So in order to create a campaign that is understood, you have to develop your message. So this includes creating sound bites, which are small, quotable things that you can say that get your point across about the information you're trying to convey. You can also make a variety of different pieces of media to get your message out, and you can come up with some type of slogan. The slogan we had for the Fridge campaign is, "Can a good kid do something dumb? Your kid's next drink might be right next to the milk." And our icon for this campaign was a milk jug or a refrigerator.
So some of the steps that we took to implement this campaign were we did awareness projects like our sticker shock project, which is when we send students into local convenience stores and grocery stores, and we have them take these stickers, like the one you can see on the PowerPoint, and bring them in and place them on alcohol items to alert the community about the dangers of underage drinking. We also made a lot of media as well, and we did presentations across our community, especially to our 5th grade parents. We also had a huge kickoff activism event, which included large visuals, posters, like you can see up on the PowerPoint, palm cards, which we handed out to pedestrians, and we had a huge press conference at the end, which resulted in a front page article the next.
When designing the campaign, a lot of you know how broad or narrow your message is. For example, if you were doing a campaign to reduce the public's exposure to secondhand smoke, that would be an example of a very broad campaign. Or you could narrow it down to reduce secondhand smoking in homes. But in order to have a campaign, you first have to figure out what your campaign is about. And that is what developing your message is. There are several steps you can follow when doing this. We're going to quickly run through this process with you. Taking the time to go through this process ensures that your group understands not only what substance you're targeting,
but also make sure that everyone is clear on 2 things. 1, how exactly you're going to address the problem, and 2, what strategies you're going to use to hopefully cause change to your target audience.
The first thing you have to do when developing your message is figure out what your goal and objectives are. So your goal is what you are trying to accomplish. Now, right up here, it says drinking and driving kills. That's not something you can accomplish, so it's not a goal. Now, it could be to reduce the amount of people that drink and drive. Now, up here, there are 2 options. The first one says reduce drinking by teens, and the second says we are against alcohol. Now, if this was a live audience, I would ask you to say which one you think is a goal, but since we can't really talk to each other, just think to yourself which one you think is a goal. Now, the answer for this would be the first one, reduce drinking by teens, because that's something you can do or accomplish.
Now, for all you people out there in the prevention community saying, okay, that's a pretty simple approach, keep in mind that this PowerPoint and this presentation is also designed as a tool for you, how you might teach your teens about this. So we're teaching you a system that we use for our teens. So I don't want you to think that the students are talking down to you. This is how they would teach it to their younger kids using exactly these same PowerPoint frames. And we can also make these available to you if you had a group of teens that you wanted to teach these concepts to. So some of this is information designed for you. Some of this is representing how you might teach in a very straightforward way, how you might teach these concepts to people in your coalition, adults in your coalition, or particularly teens in your coalition. So you got to look at this material not just in what we're trying to teach you, but how you might use this tool, if that makes sense. Okay, back to you guys. Go ahead. You're doing great.
Okay, so not only do you have to figure out what your goal is, you also have to figure out what your specific objectives are. So this means, what do you want to change that will help you to lead towards your goal? Now, an example of this is if your goal was to reduce the harm caused by teen smoking, your objective might be to get stores to check their IDs more thoroughly to make it harder for kids to get cigarettes.
So right here we have our fridge campaign sticker. If the goal of this example media is to reduce underage drinking, then what would the objective be? What would happen that would hopefully help achieve the goal? Now, if you were with me here right now, you would obviously say the answer, but I'm just going to say it, that hopefully parents will be more careful with the alcohol in their homes and keep from kids having access to it.
The next step is to determine your target audience. Your target audience is the group whose behavior you are trying to change or influence. Now, once we make sure our group understands this, we will usually give them a few example campaigns. For example, if you were doing a campaign for installing smoke detectors in every home, I want you to think to yourselves, who is the target audience? Or who might the target audience be? Now, hopefully you are thinking homeowners. Or if we were doing a campaign to reduce speeding near a school, the target audience might be drivers. I want you to take a look at this next poster here. It says, start talking before they start drinking. I want you to think to yourselves, who is the target audience? Now, usually we get a lot of answers for kids or teens, but if you read it very carefully, it's actually talking to the parents of those teens. It's trying to change their behavior so they start talking before their kids start drinking. And in this next poster from our own campaign, Majority Rules, it says that 9 out of 10 DHS students don't abuse pills. And the target audience of this campaign was teens. So your next step is to decide on the specific strategy that you will use in your media and in your programs. So the strategy is how you think the message in your campaigns will change people's behavior. So when doing this, you want to ask yourself, what is your theory or understanding of how your message will cause the result that you're hoping for? So if you look at this PSA, it says, one for the road, drink and drive, and you may lose something on the way home from the party. Now, you probably can tell, as so can I, that this strategy is trying to get people to be aware of the dangers of drinking and driving. And they're trying to change people's behavior by showing them one of the consequences that could happen if you abuse alcohol and drink and drive.
We're showing a lot of these examples here, and examples that are coming in the forward to show you, to illustrate the concept. And we're not necessarily saying that a particular type of strategy or campaign or piece of media is effective or not effective, or recommended or not recommended. All of these are just illustrated of the concept that we're trying to illustrate here, the concept of what is the strategy. So we pick a simple example like this of a person missing a leg, which may or may not be an effective strategy to use, but it's a simple one for the illustration of getting someone to think about what's the strategy of this media. And they'll get more sophisticated as we move on.
So, like we just said, there are several different types of strategies that you can use, and we'll go more in depth with that later.
The fourth step is to develop a theme or an icon for your campaign. The theme of the icon is a scene or background situation that the media occurs in. It's catchy, it's visual, and it gets people's attention easily. For example, for our fridge campaign, our icon was a fridge. As you can see on the next slide, we have a giant life-size cardboard fridge just on the sidewalk. And if you were driving by or walking by and you saw this, you would be curious, interested, why is there a fridge on the sidewalk? And you want to go check it out, and that's where we would tell you our goal and our objectives. And on the next slide, you can see this is something that PETA, a non-animal abuse organization, did. It's a woman in a cage, and again, if you saw this on a sidewalk, you would be interested, maybe even scared a little bit. Why is there a human trapped in a cage? So you would go over there, and they would tell you that this is how chickens are treated or other animals, and that KFC tortures animals, as you can see on the cage. It's something very catchy, not catchy, but something very visual and something that you would want to go check out. And on the next slide, we have another icon. This is for the Don't Target Youth campaign about candy-flavored tobacco targeting youth. And as our icon, we chose a giant target to represent the Don't Target Youth.
So, when we have a large assembly or a classroom-style presentation, we always do something that we call applied skills or applied practice. So we do this to make sure that the audience of whether youth or adults are clear on how to use these concepts that we've been talking about. What we're going to do now is we're going to show you a variety of different PSAs and posters, and we're going to ask you who the target audience is or what the goal and objectives are. So we would love if you could at home answer what you thought that the goals, objective, and target audiences of these different PSAs are, just to make sure you are on the same page as us when we talk about these different terms. So first, up at this top one, or the one on the PowerPoint right now, it says, "Don't wait until it's too late. Talk with your kids about drugs." So who is the target audience of that one? So I bet you all are saying that it's parents because it's talking about them reaching out to their kids. Now, also there is setting, which we didn't talk as much about, but if you look at this advertisement, it says sober spirit, life at its best, add nothing. So if you look at it, the setting seems to be at some type of pep rally or sports game. Now, who is the target audience of this PSA? So I bet you are all saying that it's young adults or teens because it makes it a very attractive PSA to them when it's people having a good time with their friends. Now, this one says drinking too much too fast can stop your heart. What is the overall goal of this that this message could support? So I would say that the goal for this is to stop people from binge drinking or to alert them of the dangers that could come to them for doing so. And once again, what's the setting of this media? Where is it taking place? So it's in some type of medical facility or something like that, like a ER or a ambulance.
So doing that applied, when working with youth, doing that applied practice like this, I have a whole collection of posters and examples of prevention media, and I'll regularly pull out several and throw them in front of the students and say, okay, what's the goal? What's the target audience? And have them apply these concepts to actual prevention media. And it tells you right away if they have absorbed and internalized these concepts. And it also helps them to kind of look at prevention media in those terms and breaking down in those concepts so that they're conversant in the terminology, but they're also looking at media differently. They're starting to what is called deconstructing it, taking it apart and analyzing it for who's the target audience they're trying to influence, what goal are they trying to reach, what is their strategy. So there's several different kinds of strategies that could be used. The students are going to go through several of those right now. These strategies can be applied to a single radio PSA, a piece of media. These strategies can also be applied to an entire campaign, which is what we're talking about today.
So, like we just discussed, a well-designed strategy is a key part of ensuring that your PSA and your campaign have an impact that A, will influence others, and B, will result in them changing their behavior like you hope.
We're going to look at some of the common strategies that are used for changing people's attitudes towards things like alcohol, tobacco, and other drugs.
Our first strategy is the health message. The health message is media that conveys a message of health consequences. This strategy assumes that when someone is warned or informed of the risks of doing something, they will not most likely and hopefully not want to do it because they don't want to get injured or killed. If you do blank, it will kill, harm, or injure you. For example, saying that if you smoke, you might get lung cancer. That is an example of using the health message. And right here we have another example. It's a poster about alcohol, and it has a bunch of harmful side effects if you do consume alcohol too much, like slurred speech, stomach ulcers, and osteoporosis. And if you look at this poster, you would think, I don't want all these things, so I'm not going to drink alcohol.
And as we know, health message can work in some instances, and long-range health effects-based messages for teens may be somewhat less effective, but a health message can still be part of a comprehensive campaign combined with other types of strategies.
So the next type of strategy is a social norming strategy. And social norming messages are used to make your target audience aware that not everyone is doing it. For instance, not everyone binge drinks, or not everyone drinks and drives. Social norming messages can also tell the audience that most people engage in a positive or desired behavior. For instance, most teens wear a seatbelt. So the basic theory of change of a social norming message is that what people feel is normal or expected will influence their decisions to drink or to try drugs. So if you look up at the PowerPoint, you can see this piece of media that we referred to earlier, and it says 7 out of 10 Dover High School students don't drink. So this is a social norming message because while a lot of people may think that most high school students drink, there's actually evidence telling you that most high school students at Dover High School don't drink.
So 2 other strategies you can use is a social disapproval or social approval message. So in this type of strategy, you emphasize the social consequences of whatever the behavior is. So first, starting off with social disapproval, this is when you make it seem like this action or doing this could put a not so positive light on you and might cause people to look down upon you or to not think very well of you. So an example of a PSA with a social disapproval message is up on the screen right now. It says, she thought turning down a drink would make her look bad. Alcohol, don't push it. Now she's on the floor, there's in a nasty bathroom with her face in the toilet bowl, toilet paper all over the ground. It is not a very nice sight to see. And obviously it's not putting this person in the most positive light. Now their hope, the person who made this media, their hope is that people will look at this and they don't want to be thought of in that way, so they will choose not to do this activity because they don't want to be looked badly upon.
So we also have this social approval style of message, which conveys that you'll be looked at in a positive way for not doing certain things like not drinking. For example, you'll be in control of yourself, which is a positive attribute. If you look up at the piece of media on the PowerPoint right now, it says sober spirit, life at its best, add nothing. So clearly you can tell they're portraying her in a positive and socially acceptable way. And the people who made this media are trying to get out to people that you can live a fun, healthy, and exciting life without alcohol.
Now, the last strategy that we're going to talk about today is a counter-advertising strategy. So this is when your media is alerting the target audience that this industry is manipulating you. Basically, it's saying, don't allow this industry to take advantage of you because they just want you to buy their product so they can get your money. They don't really care about the consequences to you at all.
The theory of change for a counter-advertising message is that people, particularly young people, don't like being lied to, and in turn not do the thing that they're being lied to about, such as drinking or smoking.
The strategy usually incorporates an emphasis on media literacy because they're hoping that the target audience will become resistant to all of these messages from this industry because they don't want to be taken advantage of and they don't want to make it seem like this industry is controlling them and manipulating them. So counter-advertising has been used in tobacco prevention since the 1990s. So here is a video PSA we're going to play to you called.
So in the interest of time, we're not going to play that video PSA. But up on the screen, you can see a social disapproval strategy ad that we talked about earlier. And if you change the text of that ad, and it said the vodka ad she saw didn't look like this, you would be changing this ad from a social disapproval to an ad that PSA that focused on counter-advertising, causing people to re-examine the advertising that a particular company had put out. And it still has, if you did such a thing as this, it would still have elements of social disapproval in it, but it would take on a predominant theme of counter-advertising, countering the advertising, attacking the industry for not advertising in a realistic or truthful kind of way. Counter-advertising messages oftentimes emphasize that they're more interested in getting your money, aren't being honest with you, they're targeting teens. Those are counter-advertising kinds of messages. Not warning about the consequences, I said earlier, and basically attacking the industry for being misleading and deceptive, as Elsa said. And all of these kinds of messaging, we did a whole campaign on called We Want for Truth, and all of that was counter-advertising oriented. I'm going to, in the interest of time here, I'm going to skip over the second applied practice because I think you got the gist of how we used that. But you can do the same thing with examples of media, and instead of asking them who the target audience is, what the goal is, ask them what strategy is being used here. So if you're doing an applied practice and you said what strategy is being used here to your students, you would hope that they would say, oh, this is a health strategy, warning about the dangers of binge drinking being capable of stopping your heart. So that would be a health style message. Okay, so let's move ahead, pick up here, and we'll move on.
Okay, so when we undertake a campaign, we like to have a variety of activities and elements to it. And they fall under the categories we talked about earlier: media, awareness projects, policy change initiatives, and educational presentations.
Media is one way of getting your message out to your target audience. Some organizations conduct a media campaign where only media is used to get the message out. But in other campaigns, like a comprehensive campaign, media is just one of the many elements used to get out the message to your target audience. Now, when we say media, we're not talking about the press or the news channels or anything like that. We're referring to media that you find or create that carries your campaign's message, such as radio or video PSAs, social media, posters, billboards. You get the idea. For example, in our long-running fridge campaign that we discussed earlier, we created many PSAs, including video and radio PSAs, to get our message out. And we're going to play one of them, a video PSA for you right now.
Bridge, we need to talk.
About what, Microwave?
You should tell the parents that the kids are taking beer from you.
Come on, they're good kids.
Even a good kid can make a bad decision, and because they're so young, the parents don't think they're drinking. Just ask the cookie jar.
They used to sneak cookies. Now they sneak beer.
Recent surveys revealed that the #1 source for a teen's first drink isn't their home or the home of a friend. Your child's next drink could be right next to them.
And that, you missed the first few seconds of blacked out, but you heard the audio. That was actually played on our local ABC affiliate when it was first developed during the day. Okay.
We also do a lot of awareness projects, which is another good way to get your message out. An awareness project is any project that gets your message out and into the community. But a good example of this is our sticker shock, which we explained earlier.
So we also, another way to get your message across or to lead towards your goal in your campaign is with policy change initiatives. So this is another way that you can reinforce your campaign. And an example of this is if you have a campaign to reduce the exposure to kids of secondhand smoke, then your group might, as we tried to do twice, propose legislation to make it illegal to smoke in a car if minors are present. So in our case, the New Hampshire legislators voted not to pass, but it did get our message out to a lot of people who are looking into the issue and understood why we thought it was a problem.
So another way you can get your media out there is with education and presentations. So there are many types of training and educational opportunities that may come up that can help you get your campaign message out there. So if you look up at the PowerPoint, you can see our presentation video called Samantha Skunk, which is a 30-minute costume presentation that educates younger students on safe prescription drug use. We also have our 8 Things presentation from our brain campaign.
And in most cases, you can also do a big kickoff or rally event. So normally you would choose what the launch date for your campaign is, and this is when all of these activities start happening. So often you will kick off your campaign with some type of announcement to the press or a rally or a celebratory event, and this is designed to gain the public's attention so they can understand what you're going to be doing for the next several months or even years. So your group can have a kickoff event at any time of the year. It doesn't have to be a specific time, although it could be something that coincides with some other event. Like if your campaign is talking about keeping drugs or e-cigarettes out of schools, then you might want to kick off your campaign near the beginning of the school year. So youth group will often have the kickoff at the beginning of the school year, since a lot of the stuff we do has to do with youths and teens specifically.
So the components of a kickoff event will vary, and you'll have to come up with some of your own creative ideas, but our kickoff events have common elements such as large visuals, which can attract the public's attention and the media's attention, and they can serve as an icon for your campaign, like we talked about earlier. So if you look up here, you can see we have huge medication bottles, which are large visuals. There's other visuals on the PowerPoint, such as huge candy bars or the Target. We also have smaller informational visuals, which are better and can help convey your info to pedestrians because they're more visible. It makes them easier to reference in conversation. So we also make posters when we have a rally. And we're very careful when we make our posters, and we teach our students the steps to creating a good poster. So when you make a poster, you want to make sure the colors have good contrast between the ink and the background. You also want to make sure that you have a large, thick font that has good sized lettering. These are some really good examples up on the PowerPoint. And you want to make sure that the spacing between the letters is good so that people can read them. So we try to shy away from bubble lettering because it can be harder to read. And you also want to make sure that you have good color, good font. So all of these are really good examples that you can see up on the PowerPoint. And when we make posters, we want to make sure there's a clear message. We want to make sure that the people driving by or the pedestrians can easily understand the message we're trying to convey. So if you look up here, you can see two different posters. One says poisons kill and one says cigarettes equals poison. So at home right now, I want you to think about which one seems more clear to you. And I would hope that you would pick the one on the left, which says cigarettes equals poison, because it draws your attention and easily shows you that you're relating cigarettes to poison rather than just saying poisons kill, because that doesn't really show exactly what you're trying to talk about. So we also have chants that we do, which can help you convey your message and bring attention to your event, and it keeps your members excited and interested. And sometimes we do costumes, like you can see up here. We have someone dressed up as a huge pill container. We've also had people dressed up in hazmat suits to show how toxic secondhand smoke is. And like I just talked about, chants. And we also do palm cards. So palm cards are small cards about the size of your palm, and they're handed out to pedestrians and help to explain your goal and your position, which also allows for them to come back and reference it later on. So we do palm cards in 3-person teams, and we practice like that beforehand. And here's an example of our palm card for our brain campaign. So we also will have a press conference at the end of every single rally we do to wrap up our event and explain our message to the public and also to the media.
So what we're going to do now is give you some examples of long-term campaigns, and a lot of the resources that we developed to do these are available to you if you wanted to do a campaign that was like this or similar in some way. We'd be glad to share any of those things with if you see anything that would be attractive to you going forward.
So the example we're going to use is our brain campaign. So this campaign had the goal to reduce underage drinking.
The objective was to shift both teen and parental views about alcohol from that alcohol is fine and risk-free as long as you're not driving, to a more balanced view that alcohol is dangerous in any situation.
Target audience here was both the teens and the parents.
So when we implemented this project, we knew that we needed to prepare. So we knew that we needed to develop knowledge about the brain. So this is when we trained our members on how alcohol can affect the different parts of your brain and about the consequences that will happen if parts of your brain are not working correctly. For example, poor decision making in the front of the brain is affected by alcohol.
And speaking as the advisor to the group, it was really important to me, if we're going to put a group of students out on the sidewalk talking to pedestrians about how alcohol affects the brain, that they actually had some information on that. So what you can see there on the screen is an example of some of the training we did where we labeled certain key parts of the brain, not every single part, but key parts of the brain. And we made sure that the students could point to 2 or 3 examples where alcohol affected the brain, such as alcohol affecting the brainstem portion of the brain, which results in the consequence of alcohol poisoning. So the part of the brain that gets turned off when someone drinks so much that the heart stops. That's actually a condition of the brain, not of the heart. And the prefrontal cortex being affected for decision making. Make sure students understood, each student understood at least 3 different parts of the brain and the consequence that happened if alcohol affected that portion of the brain. So otherwise, you have students out there sidewalk talking to pedestrians, and the danger is someone engages them in conversation, and they don't have any examples, or they can't talk intelligently about it. So it comes back to the model we use: knowledge, skills, developing that knowledge base, developing those skills to articulate what they know before they get put in front of an audience to speak, before they get out on the sidewalk and trying to tell people about this campaign and have it look like it's not really their campaign, that they don't really understand it. So we were really careful, especially in something that's technical as how alcohol affects the brain. We were very careful to make sure every student involved had a very clear idea of how that worked. And they were, by the time we were done, they were very articulate in it. And pick up from there.
So after that, we refined our message and developed the 8 consequences that were tied to a part of the brain or an impact that alcohol can have on the brain. And you have this in your handout if you would like to take a look at it.
So the Brain campaign was a comprehensive campaign, so it had many elements. The first element was the kickoff that we did at the beginning. As you can see in all these pictures, we have a ton of people holding nice, well-made posters, large visuals like the big brains, small visuals like little posters, and we had our palm cards right here, and we even held a press conference, which resulted in a front page newspaper article the next day. And after the kickoff event, we also did a lot of other things like creating visual media and PSAs, sticker shock, logo lampoon, flash on the walls, bunch of things. Like education, we did presentations to the 5th grade parents and 8 things to the 7th grade. And we also held community awareness action projects like sticker shock, where we went into stores.
So another campaign.
And before we go off the Brain campaign, I just play a short video clip to give you a little flavor of what it looked like if you were in downtown Dover for the kickoff event. This is what it would have looked like.
I know you're tired. Let's go right to number 1. 2, 1.
So I'll cut it off right there. Note that you had older members of the group, but still students, leading the others, including the younger ones, as well as older ones that were part of the line there. So there were adults present. You didn't see them, but there were adults in the vicinity, but we were wanted to make that or allow that to be a youth-driven event. So we were available if they needed us, but we're not the ones, the adults aren't out there leading the chants, that type of thing. That's not how we choose to do it. And I will move ahead here.
Okay.
Good.
So another campaign we've done is the Anyone, Anytime campaign. So this is a good example of piggybacking on a message that's already established. So in this campaign, we conducted a variety of local activities to support the state's campaign, where all of the messaging and strategies were already worked out. So the Anyone, Anytime campaign was a campaign to address opioid misuse. So the key parts of this campaign were anyone at any time can experience addiction, anyone anytime can ask for help, anyone anytime can recover, and anyone anytime can save a life. So for this campaign, we had a kickoff event very similar to the ones we've talked about already. Here we had posters, chants, palm cards, visuals, and we had a press conference at the end.
So the last type of campaign that we're going to talk about is called a numbers campaign. So this is when you build a campaign around a memorable number that represents the concern you're addressing. For example, the campaign for tobacco-free kids has used the number of people that die each day as for a campaign that they did. So the number was 1,200. So this can create opportunities for you to have creative messaging at your events. So they collected 1,200 pairs of shoes and laid them out as a visual display in front of the Capitol building. So this was our inspiration for our 308 campaign. So 308 represents the number of kids who start smoking each month. So our goal when we did this campaign was to convince the New Hampshire legislature to increase funding for tobacco prevention. So as you can see, we set up 308 lunch boxes with information tags and black balloons, and we set them up in front of our state house in Concord on a day that they would vote for the House bill to provide funding for tobacco prevention. And as a result of our efforts in our project, the Campaign for Tobacco-Free Kids made a video that we will show you now if we have some time.
We do.
This is the New Hampshire State House. I come here very often to speak and to do presentations, demonstrations. No money is spent in New Hampshire for tobacco prevention.
Caitlin got this idea to find out how many tax dollars the Granite State makes from the illegal sale of tobacco to kids. They decided to file legislation requiring the state of New Hampshire to spend $1.7 million on tobacco prevention on youth in New Hampshire, and it was brilliant.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee.
I don't think I ever heard a performance from somebody that not such a media, not when Caitlin was done, the chairman of the committee said, anybody who got enough nerve to ask us any questions?
Outside, in front of the State House, is 308 lunch boxes, which is the 308 youth that start smoking every month in New Hampshire. It was in the middle of January. There was snow piled up to here. We couldn't figure out a place to put the lunch boxes. We were shoving them in the snowbanks. It was amazing.
It was really hard for state senator to walk past those 308 lunch boxes if there wasn't a problem in New Hampshire. She has something different. People want to follow her. You feel safe. She's not going to push you over the edge. She's going to push you. That's not a bad thing. And she pushed them that day in the House Finance Committee.
We're going to stand up against this tobacco industry. I've been doing things on a statewide level and a national level, but I still think it's very, very important that you do the grassroots things, that you work with your community, doing things like the gear exchange on Kick Butt Day. The public comes in and brings stuff that has tobacco industry logos on them, and what we do is we trade them in, and they give us their stuff, and we give them an anti-tobacco message.
She doesn't need to be the star. This is never about Caitlin Riley to her. I don't think she cares if anybody learns her name at the end of the day, but she cares that they think differently about tobacco and youth and about the industry's influence in our communities. That's leadership. That's the kind of leadership we need.
Definitely politics in my future. I definitely hope so. Something on a high profile scale is definitely key in the future.
So that's basically what we have for our presentation so far. You were all so amazing, and at this time we would be happy to take any questions you have, but first we're all going to introduce ourselves.
So let me go live here. Hold on. And you guys are live and broadcasting to the people of North Carolina.
Okay.
Go ahead and say hello.
Hello, everyone. My name is Grace Lunny, and I am in 11th grade, and I've been part of the Youth to Youth program for 6 years now.
Hi, my name is Elsa Rogers. I am a sophomore, and I've been a part of Youth to Youth for 5 years.
My name is Adve Nomala. I've been in Youth to Youth for 3 years, and I am in 8th grade.
My name is Kyla Hill. I'm in 9th grade, and I'm on my 5th year of being in Youth to Youth.
Okay, you guys did a great job. Really appreciate the work you put into doing this. If anyone has any questions, feel free to type them in on the chat. We have, for example, places have taken some of our campaigns that we've done and wanted to replicate them, and I've been able to provide things like the Palm card is in Microsoft Publisher, so I can send that file. I've sent that file to coalitions that want to do a similar kind of campaign, and they were able to take the palm card on publisher and just modify it to their own purposes. If you have the toolkit, you already have those things contained in it. Things like the press release that we did is an easy thing to send to somebody, and your students could start with that and modify that. And on these campaigns we showed you, or any other one that we have done in the past, we have a lot of that material, and it's so much easier to start with something someone else has done than it is to start with a blank piece of paper. You can always modify it to your own purposes. The handout has a lot of examples of scripts from radio PSAs that we used, examples of palm cards, stickers for sticker shock, and that type of thing. And we're all about sharing and helping other people do the same things if they're interested. And in closing out today, we're already working on a spring set of webinars that we'll be doing in collaboration with North Carolina, and so you'll be hearing more about that. And other resources available from us, just let us know. We have there's my information for you, and with that said, I'm not seeing any questions, so want to thank everybody for tuning in, and hopefully that we had some information for you that was helpful and valuable. And that concludes today's presentation.
Thank you, Dana. Just a reminder, we'll send out survey by email. We'll get certificates out to you this week as well. The webinar that he was talking about in the spring, it will be April 21st from 3 to 4. So the same time frame and setup. You can go ahead and register for that now on our website. But again, we'll send that out. Don't forget to complete the survey, and resources will be posted on the help desk along with the webinar today. So thank you all for participating.